Well, thank you everyone for coming to this session. We are King's Online's visual design team, and the work we do is mostly to take text-based content with instructional design direction and really translate that into interactive, visually engaging e-learning resources. So we'll be talking about some of the ways we do that and about the idea of communicating visually. So I think most of the time we think about visual design and graphic design as having a role in making something pretty and appealing and marketable. But it also can have a great role in enhancing learning and making the learning experience better. And we'll look at this in three broad ways. So the first is engagement, the second is memory, and the third is manageability. So we say that good visual design can really help make the learning experience more engaging. It can capture the learner's attention and maintain that. And one of the things we have been working on as a team is to use more animation in our work for the purpose of engagement. And Rebecca's going to show you one example of that.
So I'm just going to show you an animation that we did for public health. It's about public health managers and the challenges they face when leading change in organisations.
The manager will also be affected by influence from the outside, either from other organisations or even society itself. New public management is the name given to a wave of management reforms introduced by Thatcher and continued to this day, characterised by the introduction of private sector management principles into the public sector, including quasi-market structures, such as the introduction of competition between health service providers within the National Health Service. This demonstrates that a manager's role requires thought, adaptability, and can be incredibly varied throughout the organisation itself and in the environment with which the organisation interacts. In addition, there are several forces at play that may influence management bottom-up and top-down, which may also be a reflection of dominant social trends and ideologies.
So there were a lot of design considerations when we were looking at making this animation, and they were particularly around the character design, the art direction, and the general narrative itself. So for the character design, we really wanted to create a manager who was relatable, who was believable, for students who were going into the public care sector. So we wanted to spend a lot of time working on the illustration style, making it clean, minimalistic, and very fresh looking. So as part of that, we created a number of different characters here. And we spent a lot of time thinking about whether we wanted a male or a female character. And we went with a female character because we felt like it would be more representative. And that we could actually spend more time working on the colour palette and the clothes and everything, and making it feel a little bit more engaging, less corporate. The next thing that we actually did was working on the art direction. So we focused a lot on creating a sense of space. A lot of time we actually started right at the very beginning. The very first idea was that we would have like a comic strip of the entire process map. So this is what you see at the very end of the screencast. And it would just be a journey of the character going through the entire process. So that use of space, that use of movement between different scenes is much more engaging than going from slide to slide, because you're using the power of the camera a little bit more. So the other thing that we did, the other very effective use of space, is in the sort of almost three-dimensional design of things like the office buildings, the desks, the houses. It creates a sense of depth a little bit more. So, and it just also, these aesthetic choices actually help to make the student feel that much more engaged, to make it an enjoyable experience. The other thing that we were considering was the narrative, because that is ultimately the most important part of this animation. So it is basically the story of a public health manager as she tackles the various challenges in her journey. So we wanted to depict this as a journey, and we demonstrate it visually with her taking a winding path through the entire process. So this narrative technique is really great for telling a story, getting the students to really connect with the character and engage with the learning, and makes it that much more memorable. And this leads into what Abby is about to talk about.
So as Becca has shown, good design can package information in a way that is engaging and memorable. But how and why should good design aid memory? So we're all surrounded by distractions all the time, and this is especially true in an online learning environment. Good design can remove these distractions by highlighting the key information and guiding the learner towards the information that they should focus on. It can also aid in enabling the learner to make connections between new information and existing knowledge that they may have. And this can be done by using repeating imagery and also creating recognisable points of reference for the learner. Another way that design can be used in aiding memory is to create a story or a narrative. And this aids memory in that a story or a narrative is much more readily absorbed into the long-term memory than an unconnected string of facts or figures. An excellent example of the way that illustration and design has been used to aid memory is the illustration work that Sam has done for the Padalea project, which he's going to introduce.
Hello everybody. So yeah, I'm just going to talk a little bit about the visual design of an English learning course that I designed. I've clicked the wrong one, sorry. So this was an English learning course for Syrian refugees. So yeah, the use of the characters, we created illustrations that were really simple and friendly, and we wanted to make the characters so they were intentionally familiar to the audience. One of the main limitations was the fact that they have very limited internet access. So one way around this was, instead of creating videos, which we do in a lot of our other courses, we created comic strips. So this was a way to keep the content engaging and still interactive, but getting around that limitation. These are some illustrations that I used to illustrate preposition of place. So again, I've used very simple illustrations of a cat here, which again increases like memory retention, so students can understand the content easier and the illustrations are memorable, so the students can remember the content that we're trying to teach them. Another thing that we use a lot of in all of our courses, but a lot in Padalea as well, was the use of icons. So this helps the content more manageable and engaging for the students, and basically helps them make the content more digestible and easier to manage. I'm going to pass you back over to Abby now. Oh, sorry, not Abby.
Yeah, so as Sam has illustrated here, visual design can also be used to make learning a bit more manageable. So in this case, it's about creating an interface that's easy to navigate, making sure that students, when they come into the experience, they're using their energy on learning, not on trying to navigate the interface or trying to find something. But we can also use it to make the information itself more manageable. So take complex processes or complex data and information and visualize it in a way that makes it more understandable and more usable. And we've been really lucky to have Abby on our team. She has a lot of experience in scientific illustration, which really holds this idea of manageability at its center.
Yeah, so I've got a lot of experience in scientific and medical illustration. And what is the point of scientific illustration? So scientific illustration can be used to communicate complex concepts or processes that it may be difficult or very long-winded to communicate just through text alone, or impossible to photograph. And an example of this that I've produced while working for King's Online is prenatal brain development, showing the neural development of an embryo that we produced for the Child and Adolescent Mental Health Programme. So it's really important that the designer or the illustrator has a clear understanding and knowledge of what it is to be communicated, so that they can make decisions about what information is really important and what should be highlighted, and what features may be irrelevant or distracting. So 2 examples of this are an illustration of an appendectomy that was produced for surgical education online learning, and this illustration of a Homarus gammarus common lobster that was produced for a field guide that was used by marine biologists. I also have a lot of experience of working alongside scientists and experts to visually represent their research findings. So this is a cover that I produced for Nature Journal, along with scientists who were researching deep-sea hydrothermal vents and the way that the chemicals produced interact with the surrounding water. So another example of a way that complex information can be depicted visually is in the field of infographics, which Danielle is going to talk us through now.
So data, particularly numerical data, can sometimes feel like that kind of unmanageable content, unmanageable information. And infographics and visualization are a great way to do this work of making them manageable. So I think, as you've seen in a lot of these cases, the real crux of creating good visual design is about finding the right story and telling it. And that's definitely true with data visualization too. Your good infographic will be one with a good story. So that's always the starting point. But there are also a variety of types of infographic you can use. So the first is illustrative, and this is really kind of about choosing a single fact to demonstrate and really highlight, give the user a way in. And it's usually used alongside a lot of other information. Proportional infographics show numerical comparisons, so you're looking highs, lows, averages, all kind of demonstrating context. A timeline is great for showing a process or change or a projection. As it implies, just looking at something moving through time. Maps are great for showing geographical representations of data. And finally, lists are a good way of separating things into categories or showing commonality or ranking.
So we want you to do a quick exercise over the next 10-15 minutes, just in small groups of 2 or 3 or so. And we've got some information, some data sets, and some pens and paper, and we just want to see if you can sketch a quick infographic for us, and then anyone that feels comfortable presenting them at the end can, but you don't have to, it's optional. Should we just check these around? Didn't print enough. Okay, guys, just to clarify, we were just looking at, you're just picking one of the data sets. You don't have to draw an infographic for all of them. And then, yeah, just sketch an idea up. Maybe think about the infographics that Danielle showed you. So there's different types. There was illustrative, timeline, proportional, map. So there's like different ways to respond to the material. Have you still not got any data? Danielle, can you... has anybody got spare sheets of data? Because we've just realised we haven't printed enough, so we might have to distribute it a bit more evenly. Can you just hand them back to these two here? Who needs some data, sorry? Danielle, just here. Thank you. All right, guys, we'll just give you 5 more minutes on that, if that's okay. One more minute. I need some sunglasses. Okay, does anybody feel like they want to show us what you've made? Anybody confident enough? Go on, Tom. That is good. I like that. What have we got? Which data set were you responding to?
Thank you. So we went for the incontinence awareness stats. We went for quite a simple opening up. We added together all of the different figures, and we found out for the gentleman it came to 800,000. And so you see the water droplet there ingeniously turned into the approximation of the male symbol, and then a much bigger water droplet for the 2.3 million women is an approximation of the female symbol. Oh my word. It doesn't stand up to scrutiny.
There we go.
Yeah, so...
Put it on the side, I think.
So you have a breakdown of the stats there for people who are more interested in the minutiae, but I think in terms of the powerful imagery at the heart of a piece of visual design, you can see it's a very effective example. Thank you very much.
Does anybody else want to present their idea? What's your name, sir?
Hi, I'm Andreas.
Good to meet you, Andreas.
Hi, I'm Andreas Constantinides. I work for CTEL. We did the brain to body mass animal thing ratio. And we came up with 3 ideas. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So just put that here. So the first one was just some overlapping brains. This is a brain. So you can see that the biggest brain contains the smallest brain and the mother brain. And blah, blah. You get the idea, okay? And then another one is a ratio, which is basically a percentage. So you could get, like, if you had 100%, which is an animal's body, an organism's body, then how big is their brain? So that's the hippo, that's the next biggest, and then it just gets bigger, and you get the ant at the end. And then next one, because you said that an infographic should be based on a story, it could be maybe an Aesop's fable with animals. So you have the hippo here, and it's really huge, and then in between you got the other animals, and at the end you get the ant. Okay, so which one's your favorite?
I like the second one.
The hippo? Well, our artist is over there. She's ready to be, taken into your team. Thank you very much.
Is there anybody else that would like to present their ideas? Yeah? We'll have a look.
We have a timeline.
Yeah, is this for the animal
Yes.
data set as well?
Brain to body mass ratio. I don't know that. So you have ant, has a huge brain and a small body. Then you move down, or should be up, is a human, 1 to 50 in the middle, and here at the bottom is shark, big body and small brain. And take home message here that you need to have a proper proportion like a human have. So body and head work well. And I'd like to cite here our designer sitting over there, Ian McFadden. So, clap.
Okay, so we'll just show you some ones that we created using this data, so you can just get a quick idea of some examples. So this is one that Abby created about the body mass to brain ratio. And so she's drawn all the illustrations of the animals, and then this white circle represents the animal, and the brain represents the size of the brain in like a ratio. And then on the right is...
Oh, this is the 10 charities by fundraising income. So you've got the amount of income that they have overall and the amount that they actually raised for the cause. So inside here, so you can see how much money they spent versus how much they actually raised for each one. And the next one. Oh yeah, and this is for the incontinence infographic that was about nursing homes and residential homes and levels of incontinence. Kind of clear. And the next one is also, again, a pie chart graphic for incontinence and age, much more sort of differentiated out. And there was
And yeah, the last one, responding to the plastic information, I sort of chose to reframe the information as reasons to avoid plastic. So then I've just got there's just some various infographics there with different stats on them. Yeah. Cool. Has anybody got any questions? Yeah.
I mean, I guess in some ways those kind of graphics are not that different to you would see in printed text if you went to a review, etc. So I think this is a good. I'm a bit less. So we started off today hearing about the average user of a King's Online program being 35 years old and in work, and I just wondered to what extent do we know that that customer wants the kind of little animation, or what to the extent they might find that a wee bit condescending or youthful. So how do we,
well, I think it's just to do with the type of design that's used. I think it just helps with interactivity and engagement. So it's rather than just a load of text, the use of images and things make the content more memorable and easier to understand, in our opinion as designers. I'm not really sure. Does that answer the question?
well, I guess it's. I mean, we seem to be designing these things for. I mean, I think Anna showed her 8-year-old or 9-year-old, and that's one person. But actually, the people who are using our online are 35-year-old professionals, and I'm just trying to work. How do we get the balance correct? Because they're going to be they may be quite different in terms of what they find. The style that they want their information presented in. It's a big challenge.
Yeah, I do think that's a challenge, and balance is really the key word there. So looking at, for instance, that animation, it was designed with that context of healthcare, the healthcare sector, what is relatable, what do people who work in the healthcare sector look like. Some of our other courses, like a global finance course, that might have a more corporate feel. So we do a lot of work kind of prior to these individual pieces of content, deciding on the look and feel and the sense of what a course should be. And that really is informed by the idea of who these students are and what they need.
This is a follow-up to Ian's question. That's what I wanted to ask earlier. You talked about stakeholders. Do you actually ever engage with the stakeholders? And I'm talking about the users now of these courses to find out what they want, what their expectations are, maybe challenge some of your own assumptions about them?
Absolutely. That is something I think we're trying to work a lot harder at doing more of and being better at doing. So Louise was talking a bit earlier about some of the work we're doing in UX and user testing and really asking those questions. Right now we are kind of relying on the traditional course evaluations to get feedback and relying on the subject matter experts, the faculty and the instructors to tell us what they think is the center of the content and the topic area, and also who they're teaching and what they think they want.
So a lot of my work is in user storytelling, both for a health education, health promotion to influence, as well as therapeutic context. And so we have certain principles we try to work with to incorporate into our storyline that make them engaging, et cetera. And so I was particularly interested in the English as a second language, the cartoon that, it's like there's a story there and they can engage in it and then the information comes through. What I'm trying to get is a better understanding of what kind of principles can be used for how to design a story like that public health one. To me, there was some movement through different concepts that could have been sociological model, could have been systems theory, but there wasn't much personalized information that would create emotional engagement. I wonder if there are other principles that you look at or use that seem to be valuable in the narrative storytelling line of work.
Do you want to speak to that?
It sort of comes alongside other content. So you'll see this animation alongside other content within the course, and you'll see models, public health models, and you'll see these breakdowns happening as well as the animation. So it's like supporting the learning on that level. Do you see what I mean?
Okay, and relate that to me for story and storyline. Help me understand more.
Yeah,
Sorry.
no, I think,
Yeah.
well, some of the stuff Rebecca said earlier about character was really essential for us to have that emotional attachment. So you could see this person, this character, they were warm, you could relate to them immediately, you were engaged in the process they were going through, you were watching how they related to other characters. So I think that's part of the emotional engagement. All of our voice, well, most of the voice in these animations is the instructor. So that's another kind of source of connection, maybe not so much related to the content itself, but to the sense of belonging in the course. So you know that this is your module instructor who you're seeing posting on your forums too. She's speaking to you. So I think that's another space where we kind of try and get that emotional connection. In terms of the storyline, I think it is very content dependent, and something that we've been looking at is trying to look at our content much earlier and pick out that story and really get to terms with it by the time we're putting it on paper like this.
I just wanted to kind of go back to this gentleman's question over here about, does it meet the 35-year-old? And first of all, as a 35-year-old working professional, yes, absolutely. It is still very much a way to learn, but I did want to note on that so the principles that you're bringing up as far as like the design theory behind it. So it's the storytelling, it's being able to eliminate all distraction stuff, get you back to the graphics that are going to simply represent a message. Those theories are not age-based. Those are not based upon, a younger generation. Maybe how we deliver them, the mode, does it work on an iPhone versus does it work on a desktop? Those sort of things are generational, I think, a little bit, but some of these things are just very basic, how the brain works and how the brain functions. So yeah, to kind of answer your question over there too, it isn't necessarily just for the 9-year-old that's coming up into it. I did have a separate related question though. For that first graphic that you guys showed that was that move through, what platform are you guys using to do your animations?
This was the public health narrative animation was made in After Effects.
After Effects,
So
okay.
it's, traditionally we tend to use sort of PowerPoint, and we make some kind of primitive animations out of slides. So After Effects gives us that much more power to create something that's much more cinematic and much more of a story, much more engaging. And you can really sort of do so many different things. It's very, very powerful. So it's something I'm definitely pushing to use more.
Have you guys found any tools that are more easy to author, that someone who's maybe not, a video producer or somebody that can do After Effects, have you found any tools that could be easier?
You could probably use PowerPoint to make your animations. Yeah. You could then bring that into a software like Camtasia or something and start putting extra effects that you couldn't necessarily get in PowerPoint. You could use any number of other softwares as well. Photoshop has its own like frame by frame sort of timeline thing that you can do. You can use Flash. There are some HTML5 ways that you can code your animations as well if you take a little bit of time on, do a little bit of tutorial work, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and I would just add that PowerPoint there's a lot of possibility to use quite simple design tools with the right principles. So just using fade in and out in PowerPoint is surprisingly effective if you're using it on the right assets at the right time.
Hi, I wanted to ask you around, so for the layperson creating animations for themselves, often we'll source images from Google or Google Images or whatever it might be, but there's a copyright issue. So how do we get access to a bank of images that have been validated for us to use?
Yeah, so we're really lucky that we have a license for Shutterstock, which we use a lot. I would recommend using the Creative Commons search tool. So it's a great way to filter images, based on what you want to use them for. So if you want to use them for commercial purposes or not, or if you want to adapt them. So I think that's just called something like ccsearch.com. And it enables you to search through Google Images, Wikimedia, Flickr, a lot of places like that. Those are really good places, I think, as a starting point.
So is Shepherd's Plots available to everyone at King's? Or like, is the license open to everyone at King's, or is it just to King's Online?
Yeah, I think it's team-based. There's also the King's Image Library, which we do use from time to time. And the Welcome Collection, yeah.
Did you create your own images? Is that, or do you use Shepherd's?
I think it's a combination. A lot of these kind of illustration styles we'll either create or we'll take something that's existing and adapt it quite a bit. But obviously, we didn't cover a lot of like, how to use photographs, and that you would want to just take as they are. Okay, well, thank you so much.